Lifting up our hearts to heaven, let us imitate the hierarchy of the ages. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Glory be to Jesus Christ.
Glory be forever.
So I recognize that the majority of you will be listening from home, so I'll try to make sure that I direct my eyesight there. However, I was thinking about this whole regard with churches being relatively empty and us sort of having to operate in a new way. And the phrase came to me that it's a bitter pill to swallow. And I like that phrase. I thought it was very good. That it's something that we have to deal with, that we're not able to sort of get around unless we all wanted to commit illegal acts or disobey the patriarch, which I'm not really willing to do. So it's something we have to do, but we don't like it. And we don't have to. And it's more or less a good thing that we don't like it. We shouldn't be comfortable with the idea that we're not in church. But in recognition of the fact that it was something bitter, and thought of a phrase that was taken from the Old Testament, from the book of Exodus, that actually is regarding the celebration of the veneration of the Holy Cross today. And so I'm going to read you something taken from Exodus chapter 15, verse 22. And it goes on for a little bit, so please bear with me. We begin, "Thus Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. Then they went out into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the desert and found no water to drink. Now when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore he named that place Bitterness. Then the people complained against Moses, saying, 'What shall we drink?' So he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. And when he cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he proved him and said, 'If you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is pleasing in his sight, give ear to his commandments and keep all his ordinances, I will put none of the diseases on you that I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your God who heals you.'" And I found this very poignant, not just today for the veneration of the cross, but for what we're dealing with. Because when it says, therefore he named that place Bitterness, we learn that the waters of Marah were called bitterness, which describes man's condition apart from the grace of Christ. That we all have a sort of bitterness inside of us, the more that we distance ourselves from God. And if you look at sort of this crisis that we're going through, take what our perspective is, that this is something unfortunate, but it is not something that has ruined us. We are not apart from God in this, and we have the hope of God's eventual mercy, that this will be taken from us, that we will find an ultimate cure, that we will find a way to be delivered from this. But if you go to somebody who does not believe in God, where is their hope in sort of coming through this? Where is their comfort? There's this idea that bitterness is what is apart from God's grace. And furthermore, if we look at sort of the imagery of the tree being cast into the water, this is a prefigurement of the salvation of the cross and of our own baptism. And I will read again from what is sort of the wisdom of the fathers. That the tree cast into the waters made them fit for the people to drink. This tree speaks of the cross of Christ and baptism. This is some Ambrose of Milan. For the cross is baptism, and baptism is the cross. The cross is in the baptismal water, and the baptismal water is in the cross. This is why baptism saves man. And finally, the ending of the passage that I read to you is summed up with, "God heals those who hear his voice and obey him." And I found this to be very, very telling of what we're sort of dealing with. That if we look to the cross for our salvation, it is what sort of saves us. It is what gives us deliverance. Not only did it deliver us from our sin due to Christ's sacrifice on it, but it delivers us from whatever iniquities we're already bearing. We hear in the Paschal Canon, I'm trying to think of the right name for the prayer, and I can't remember it. I'm very sorry. But let God arise and let his enemies be scattered. This idea that by the cross is our victory. That if it can scatter the enemies, if it can remove evil from our lives, what is evil except the separation from God? And what is a sort of symptom of a separation from God except the disease that plagues us. Not just coronavirus, but anything. All of our human illnesses, all of our human failures, all of the things that happen in our world are symptoms of a fallen nature. That as we got separated from God, the world started working out of order. And all of these things happened to us. And so the closer we bring ourselves back to God, we find our healing, we find our salvation. And in looking to the cross, I urge you, in your homes, find a cross. Go to it, kiss it today, venerate it. That this is the veneration of the Holy Cross. This is our time to rejoice in what our salvation was. That's why we're given this in the middle of Lent, to remind us of what we're aiming for. That in the middle of Lent, when we have been sort of sick of everything, we're tired of soup from fasting. I know that my vegetable soup has sort of worn out its luster for me. But when we are wearing on, when the fast becomes heavy, this is our reminder that there is an end to this. That we are looking towards our salvation. We are looking towards that which brings us deliverance. And it's the same thing with the virus that we're sort of dealing with now, is that we keep looking towards God. We don't look at anything else. We're told even by Christ, if you put your hope in men, you will fail. If you put your hope in God, then you will succeed. This idea that we keep our eyes directed in the right way. When we lose our hope, we direct them back to what is there. Our sort of, more or less, X marks the spot on the cross. That if it can make waters that were terrible for Israel, who lost hope. They lost hope. The reason that they said they complained against Moses is not that Moses had anything to do about it. Complaining against Moses means we complain to God. Moses was the one talking to God. If they complain to him, they're complaining right to the big guy upstairs that you've led us to wander in the desert and we have no water. This idea that when you lose hope, hope will be given to you if you direct yourselves the right way. If you cast your eyes back towards God, salvation will be there. He will provide for you what you need, and you will suffer no disease. You will suffer no ill effects. And so we remember this, not just in the middle of the fast, to keep going, to keep the faith, to keep fasting in expectation of a beautiful Pascha. But we also remember this in our sort of struggles today. That this bitter pill to swallow of a separation from each other, and a separation from God's house, is not something that we, one, have to like, but it's not something that can ultimately separate us from God either. That God is always there, and we direct ourselves towards Him, and we find our salvation in that. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to Jesus Christ.
Glory be forever.